I want to talk a little bit about tomorrow. Yeah, wouldn't it be? And even beyond tomorrow, specifically the inauguration of the President-elect Barack Obama as the nation's first black president. Can his presidency bridge racial lines and political divisions? Two guests, two parties. Joe Hicks is a Republican strategist, community activist. Joining him as well is Baratunde Thurston. He's a liberal comedian and blogger. Nice to have you both. Joe, why don't we start with you, if I can. Give me a sense of how you feel. We talked to so many people who are Barack Obama supporters who are so thrilled about today and tomorrow. How are you feeling from where you are?
Well, I'm excited about the potential for his presidency and his leadership. I've often said I'm the loyal opposition here. I want Barack Obama to do well. I want him to succeed. Unlike a lot of folks back in 2000 and certainly 2004 on the other side of the aisle, if you will, who refused to see Bush as their president, I accept him as my president, and I want to see him do extremely well. This country needs strong leadership.
Let me ask you, Joe, for what advice you would give him before we turn to our liberal blogger for advice as well. If you had to pick a couple of things that you would tick off if you had an audience with the president-elect, what would you tell him?
I would whisper in his ear and say, Barack, my brother, continue to be the good moderate that you seem to be so far. Don't listen to those on the far left who will encourage you to do things that I think would not be good for the country. But again, so far, I will be critical of him, but critical of things that he does in terms of policies that I disagree with. So far, I think he's been pretty straight on in terms of many of the things he's done. I would certainly encourage him to make sure he governs for the entire nation and not just listen to those that I think would direct him to, shall I say, farther left kind of ideological positions they'd like to see him take.
Let's turn to Baratunde. You have written an amazing piece on the Daily Beast, and I'm curious to know what advice, because in that article you give advice to the president-elect as he comes in, and in terms of what his family should expect, I guess. What advice do you give him?
I think we have to recognize where we are in history. I went to a party Saturday night called The End of an Era. Not an era, but an error. And we're at the beginning of a new era. And people are as joyous about Obama as they are relieved about Bush. What I advise him not to do is to put up a big mission accomplished banner saying racism's over. It's not quite that simple, but change has come. There's a little bit more work left, but not to do that. We're in the mall. The last time I was here was the Million Man March, and we've come a long way since then. We have a long way to go. It's a momentous moment to sit here amongst all these people who are going to be here tomorrow. It's beautiful.
It's been a really nice thing to feel sort of the energy in Washington, D.C. You attended Sidwell Friends, which we now know is where Malia and Sasha Obama will be going to school.
Right.
What was that experience like? You know, a lot of these private schools, as you well know, not filled with young African-American students.
And not filled with the president's daughters either. A school like Sidwell is used to educating folks like that. I mean, what I said about advice to them was, they're expected to represent the United States of America. Oftentimes in these elite private schools, you're expected to represent the United States of Black America. And how you have to, being the only black kid in the class can often raise a lot of challenges. So it was advice to the parents about what they can expect. Dynamics of rich black kids and poor black kids, about being asked to represent your whole race. As far as we've come, that still does happen. And students there from my time and after still talk about it.
Joe, back to you. People have talked about the honeymoon period, and it's true. I mean, it's so easy, especially I think because of the timing with Martin Luther King holiday, for people to wax poetic about the connections between MLK and Abraham Lincoln and Barack Obama and on and on and on. Is there a honeymoon period that ends? I mean, is it Wednesday morning, 12:01 a.m., that everybody just gets back to work? What do you think?
No, I think there will be a honeymoon period where people will allow him to settle himself in and to begin to put certain policies on the table, and people are watching to see what he does, where he goes. So I think there definitely will be a honeymoon period. I think that certainly all people now are very hopeful for this president. We're in some very difficult times here. So there will be a period, but you can certainly expect sometime within the first 90 days or so, as it's clear where he may be going, the criticism will begin, both from the left and from the right, I might add. Because I think the left already is carping about some of the stuff that they would like to see him do, who he's asking to give speeches at his inauguration tomorrow. But there will be, I think, a honeymoon period, and I think that's as expected as it has been for almost every president, perhaps with the exception of George Bush. Right away, the criticisms started in, and the Bush derangement syndrome very quickly took over.
Joe, you raise an interesting point, and Baratunde, I'll ask you to comment on that, which is he talked a little bit about the criticism from the left and the right. And you know, for a guy who built a coalition, you sort of then owe a lot of people.
Yes.
And how do you navigate that? That can be a very tricky path to carve, because you're not the black president, and you're not the president of environmentalists, and you're not the president of the people who want to end the war, and you're not the, you're the president of everybody. How do you do that?
Well, I think he started it during the campaign. I think it's nice that we're talking on MLK's day, because one of the things he did was build coalitions across people. Obama's biggest hallmark, and one of the reasons so many people were inspired, is because they were involved. And even when they disagreed with him, he listened. And that's something that the past 8 years hasn't seen. There's a lot of listening out of the White House. So he's going to pursue policies that people disagree with. He's going to do things that disappoint people. But as long as he stays open and transparent about it, I think he'll have a lot more credibility with the people, and that's what we need right now.
All right, Baratunde, thank you. Joe, as well, thank you very much for chatting with us this morning on this Martin Luther King holiday. I appreciate it.